Part 1: The Power of Day 1, inspired by the principles of Napoleon Hill. Written in a simple story style for American readers. Hook, have you ever caught yourself saying, "One day, I'll chase my dreams"? Most people do. But here's a truth that very few understand: one day never comes. Right now, somewhere in a small town in Ohio, a man named Ben Parker is sitting at a dusty desk in his garage. He's got nothing more than a notebook, a cup of black coffee, and a head full of ideas that could change his life. What he does next will determine everything. Not just for today, but for the rest of his life. This is the story of how ordinary people build extraordinary lives, starting not one day, but day one. The garage movimiento. Ben was 38 years old. A single dad. Worked in a hardware store 6 days a week. His days were long, his dreams buried under years of bills, responsibilities, and the weight of lost time. But one chilly morning in March, something snapped inside him. He was tired of waiting. Tired of saying, "Someday." He pulled out the notebook he'd kept hidden in a drawer for years. It was filled with sketches and ideas for simple home tools. Tools he always believed could make life easier for people. Every time he had an idea, he jotted it down. But he never acted on any of it, until now. Ben didn't have a business plan. He didn't have investors. But he had one thing most people ignore, a decision. He looked at the notebook, took a deep breath, and said to himself, "This is day one." Lesson 1: Choice creates change. Napoleon Hill once said, "You have a brain and mind of your own. Use it, and reach your own decisions." That morning, Ben made a decision. Not a wish. Not a hope. A decision. He could have stayed in bed. Could have told himself he was too old, too tired, or too broke. But instead, he got up early and went to work, not at the store, but on his dream. He built a prototype out of scrap metal. It was wobbly. Ugly. It didn't even work right. But it was real. Every goal starts like that, with something small and imperfect. Something that doesn't look like success but feels like progress. The cost of waiting. Ben had waited 10 years to start. 10 years of, "I'll do it when the time is right." But the truth is, there's no such thing as the right time. Waiting feels safe. But it's a silent trap. It steals your time, your energy, and your belief in yourself. And the longer you wait, the harder it gets to begin. The train doesn't stop for those standing on the platform of, "Maybe later." The Edison effect. That night, Ben was reading a book on famous inventors. He came across a story about Thomas Edison. It said Edison failed over 10,000 times before he made the light bulb work. 10,000. Ben smiled. "I've failed once," he thought. "Only 9,999 more to go." Edison didn't wait for perfect conditions. He created them through action. That's what day one people do. They don't ask, "When will my moment come?" They decide, "I will create my moment now." Momentum is built, not given. Each day after work, Ben came home, ate dinner with his daughter, and went back to his garage. He started learning about 3D printing, watched online tutorials, and even reached out to an old friend who had experience in manufacturing. He wasn't just working on a tool. He was working on himself. The hardest part wasn't the technology. It was the doubt. His mind whispered, "What if this is a waste of time? What if I'm too late? What if I fail?" But he kept going anyway, because action silences doubt. Lesson 2: Define your purpose. One night, his daughter, Lily, came into the garage. "Dad, why do you spend so much time out here?" Ben paused. "Because I want to build something better for us. I want to create something that matters." That was his purpose, not just to make a tool, but to give his daughter a life filled with possibility, to prove to himself that his dreams still had life left in them. Purpose gives pain a reason. Purpose turns exhaustion into fuel. Without it, you'll quit the moment things get hard. With it, you'll walk through fire. Walt Disney's LESSON. Ben remembered another story he once read about Walt Disney. When Walt was young, he was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Imagine that. The man who would go on to inspire the world through magic and dreams was once told he wasn't good enough. But Disney had a crystal clear vision. A defined purpose. He wasn't chasing money or fame. He wanted to build a world where imagination had no limits. So he did. And so could Ben. And so can you. Action over excuses. By the end of that month, Ben's tool finally worked. It wasn't perfect, but it solved a real problem. He recorded a demo on his phone, uploaded it to a DIY forum, and by morning, he had hundreds of comments. People wanted to know where they could buy it. That single action, just putting it out there, ignited a wave of momentum that no amount of planning could ever create. And you don't need a perfect plan. You need a decision. You don't need to know all the answers. You need to take one step. Like Ben. Your moment is now. You don't have to wait until next week, next month, or when you feel ready. Ready is a lie. But day one? Day one is a decision. Closing words of part one. Most people will keep saying, one day. But a few will wake up and say, today is day one. Those few change everything. Which one are you? End of part one. Let me know when you're ready for part two. The power of vision. See it before you build it. Day one. The journey to a life that matters. Part 2, Purpose, Resilience, Belief, and Passion, inspired by Napoleon Hill. Story format. Simple English. For American readers. Approximate. 1,000 words. The night after his first prototype received attention online, Ben Parker couldn't sleep. His mind raced with possibilities. Not just about his tool, but his entire life. The old version of Ben had always worked hard. But for years he had moved without direction. Now, for the first time in a long time, he felt something shift. It wasn't excitement. It was clarity. The next morning, Ben stood in front of his bathroom mirror and asked himself a simple question. Why am I doing this? It was more than making a product or building a business. It was about purpose. Clarity sparks progress. That day, he wrote down his goals in a cheap notebook from the dollar store. He wrote, I want to build tools that help people do everyday jobs easier. I want to give my daughter a better life. I want to prove to myself that I can finish what I start. Ben didn't write pages and pages. Just 3 sentences. But they were clear, and that clarity changed everything. He broke each goal into smaller steps. Instead of just saying, build a better life, he listed what that meant: save $5,000 this year, sell 100 tools by winter, read 1 business book each month. Every time Ben read that list, his heart beat stronger. The fog of confusion was gone. His vision had direction. As Napoleon Hill taught, vague goals produce vague results. But definite goals produce definite outcomes. Ben now had a compass. All he had to do was follow it, one step at a time. Resilience is not optional. The path forward wasn't easy. 1 week later, the second version of Ben's tool broke during testing. The handle snapped, and a metal piece scratched his forearm. He sat in the garage, bleeding and angry. He thought, maybe I'm not cut out for this. That same evening, while patching up his arm with a bandage, he remembered a story his grandfather once told him about Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln had failed in business, lost elections, and suffered deep personal loss. Yet he never quit. Lincoln believed that failure wasn't final. It was part of the path. Ben looked down at his scratched arm and laughed. Guess I'm on the right path, he muttered. The next morning, he went back to work on version 3. Resilience equals growth. Every challenge taught Ben something. Every mistake became a lesson. Instead of saying, why me? He started asking, what can I learn from this? What's the next step? How can I do this better? He started keeping a log of every failure, and what he learned from it. What Ben didn't realize was that he was building a muscle. Not a physical one, but a mindset of resilience. As Hill said, every adversity carries within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Ben was learning to grow through struggle. Belief changes everything. 2 months later, a friend from work saw one of Ben's demo videos online and laughed. Dude, who's gonna buy this junk? You're not an inventor. You sell nails and screwdrivers. Ben didn't argue. He just smiled. Not long ago, he might have taken that comment to heart. But now, he believed in himself. And that belief was louder than doubt. He remembered the Wright brothers, bicycle mechanics who dared to fly. People mocked them. But they didn't wait for approval. They built their dream, piece by piece, until it took off, literally. That story stuck with Ben. Like them, he was just a regular guy with a crazy idea. But belief? Belief gave him wings. He whispered to himself. I don't need the world to believe in me first. I'll be the proof. Daily habits of belief. Every morning before work, Ben stood in front of the mirror and said, I am building something that matters. I will succeed through action and faith. I believe in myself, even when no one else does. At first, it felt strange. But day by day, his confidence grew, and it showed. His voice got firmer. His steps got faster. And when problems came up, he didn't shrink. He solved them. Belief had taken root. And now, it was growing strong. Passion ignites the soul. One evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Ben walked back into the garage and looked around. Scrap parts were everywhere. Old tools, wires, wood pieces, and coffee mugs filled the shelves. To someone else, it looked like a mess. To Ben, it looked like magic. He wasn't just building a product. He was living a purpose. He stayed up past midnight tweaking designs. Not because he had to, but because he loved it. Every small win felt like a treasure. That's when it hit him. He wasn't tired anymore. He was alive. Fueled by passion. Ben remembered reading about Madam C.J. Walker, the daughter of slaves who became the first self-made female millionaire in America. She had every reason to give up. Poverty, discrimination, hardship, but she didn't, because she had passion. She believed in beauty, in lifting women up, in dignity. And that belief turned her vision into a multi-million-dollar empire. Ben whispered, if she could rise, so can I. The new Ben now. Ben no longer said, I'm just a hardware guy. He said, I'm an inventor. I'm a builder. I'm a father on a mission. Passion had rewired his identity. He still worked at the store during the day. But by night, he was a man chasing his dream with everything he had. Closing reflection. Ben Parker's journey wasn't filled with miracles. There was no lucky break. No sudden windfall. What changed his life were four invisible forces. 1. Clarity of purpose, knowing what he truly wanted. 2. Resilience, learning from pain instead of running from it. 3. Belief, trusting himself before anyone else did. 4. Passion, working with love, not just obligation. These weren't magic spells. They were choices, and Ben made them every single day. End of part 2. Let me know when you're ready for part 3. The inner discipline that builds empires. Day 1. The journey to a life that matters. Part 3. The inner discipline that builds empires. Story format, inspired by Napoleon Hill. Simple English for American readers. Approximate. 1,000 words. Ben Parker sat alone in his garage, the glow of a single desk lamp lighting his workbench. 3 months had passed since he made the decision to chase his dream. The tool was nearly ready. The design was better, the handle stronger, the function smoother. But tonight, Ben wasn't working on the tool. He was working on himself. The biggest changes weren't happening in metal or plastic. They were happening in his mind. Passion becomes obsession. Ben's brother had called that morning. Hey man, he said. You should slow down. You've been burning the candle at both ends. Ben smiled. He knew his brother meant well. But he also knew this. Passion wasn't draining him. It was driving him. He thought back to a time, not long ago, when days blurred together. When life felt like a loop: wake, work, sleep. No spark. No fire. Just existence. Now, he woke up before the alarm. He stayed up after midnight, sketching designs on napkins, tinkering with materials, jotting down business ideas. His mind couldn't stop thinking about how to make his idea real, and that's when it hit him. True passion doesn't feel like work. It feels like breath. You don't need to force it. You need to follow it. Ben wasn't chasing money. He was chasing meaning. The power of clear goals. One evening, while helping Lily with her homework, Ben noticed something. She had a goal: finish her math sheet by 7:30 p.m. She had a plan, 3 problems every 10 minutes. She had a reward, ice cream if she finished on time. Simple. Clear. Focused. And it worked. Ben sat back and laughed. His 8-year-old had mastered what took him 30 years to figure out. Dreams inspire. But goals direct out. He grabbed his notebook and wrote a new page. Finish prototype version 4 by August 15. Launch website by September 1. Reach out to 10 hardware stores before October. Each goal had a date, a deadline, a direction. And just like that, his energy shifted. He wasn't just dreaming anymore. He was building. The Bannister moment. That weekend, Ben came across an old documentary on YouTube. It was about Roger Bannister, the first man to run a mile in under 4 minutes. Before 1954, people said it was impossible. Even doctors warned it could kill you. But Bannister didn't listen. He trained. He planned. He studied wind resistance, running form, and recovery time. And one day, he did it. 0.3 minutes. 59.4 seconds. Ben leaned forward in his chair. What stood out wasn't just the achievement. It was how clear Bannister's goal was. Not run fast. Not be great. But run 1 mile under 4 minutes. Specific. Measurable. Timed. Ben thought to himself. What's my 4-minute mile? He circled one of his goals in the notebook. Sell 100 tools by winter. That was his race. And now, he had a reason to run. The mind is the real battlefield. Late one night, while working alone, Ben hit a wall. Not with the product. With his thoughts. A voice in his head whispered. Who do you think you are? You're not an inventor. You didn't even go to college. The room felt colder. His hands felt heavier. But then he remembered a quote from Henry Ford. Whether you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right. Ben stood up. Walked to the mirror above his workbench. Looked himself in the eye. And said aloud, I am building something that matters. I will not quit. I believe in this. And I believe in myself. He didn't wait to feel better. He chose to think better. Because your mind is either your engine or your anchor. You decide which. A garden in the mind. From that day on, Ben made a new rule. Every morning, before touching a tool, he would tend to his thoughts. He called it mental gardening. He wrote down 3 things he was grateful for. He read one powerful quote. He repeated one affirmation. I am becoming the man my purpose requires. He didn't do this because it was trendy. He did it because it worked. Each day his mind grew stronger. And with it, so did his resolve. Learning never ends. On his lunch breaks, Ben no longer scrolled mindlessly on his phone. He read. He studied inventors, entrepreneurs, craftsmen. He learned from YouTube tutorials, podcasts, books on business and marketing. Not because he had to, but because he understood. Learning is the bridge from where you are to where you want to be. He remembered the story of Andrew Carnegie, how he rose from nothing, not by luck, but by learning. Every page turned was a brick laid in Ben's future. A man transformed. Ben was no longer the man who made excuses. He was the man who made time. He was no longer the man who wished. He was the man who worked. His fire wasn't loud. It didn't brag. But it burned steady. And it burned deep. Closing reflection. Ben's life didn't change in one night. There was no lightning bolt. No lottery ticket. But inside him, something unshakable had taken root. He had learned the quiet power of discipline. Passion pulled him. Goals guided him. Mindset protected him. Learning fueled him. These were no longer ideas. They were his daily habits. And every day he followed them, he stepped 1 inch closer to the life he was born to build. End of part 3. Let me know when you're ready for part 4. Faith, doubt, and the invisible force of progress. Day 1. The journey to a life that matters. Part 4. Faith, doubt, and the invisible force of progress. Motivational story inspired by Napoleon Hill. 1,000 words. Simple English for an American audience. Rain tapped softly on the garage roof. Ben Parker sat in front of his nearly completed prototype, hands still, eyes distant. For the first time in weeks, he felt stuck. It wasn't a broken part. It wasn't a missing tool. It was doubt. That silent, sneaky force that creeps in just when you're Starting to believe in yourself. The hidden enemy. Everything had been going so well. Progress was steady. Support was growing. He had even received a kind email from a stranger who'd read about his story online. But today, he felt like a fraud. What if this doesn't work? What if no one buys it? What if I've just been lying to myself? The thoughts came fast. And they hurt more than failure ever could. Doubt is a thief. It doesn't just steal your plans. It steals your peace. Ben leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. And then he remembered something his grandfather once told him. Boy, when doubt knocks, don't answer with fear. Answer with faith. The invisible ladder. Faith. That word had always sounded vague to Ben, but that night, it took on a new meaning. Faith wasn't magic. It wasn't closing your eyes and hoping for the best. It was something else, something solid. Faith is the invisible ladder you climb when the ground disappears. It's what keeps your feet moving when your brain says, stop. It's what keeps your hands working when no one is watching. Ben didn't suddenly feel confident again, but he felt committed. And sometimes, that's all you need to keep going. The power of belief. 2 days later, Ben met with Mr. Donovan, the owner of a local hardware store. He showed him the prototype. Mr. Donovan held it, tested it, nodded slowly. It's different, he said. In a good way. I like it. Ben's heart thudded. But, Mr. Donovan added, people like what they know. Can you prove it'll sell? Ben paused. Then he answered honestly. No. Not yet. But I believe in it. And I believe people will too, once they see what it can do. The older man looked at him for a long moment, then smiled. I'll take 10. Ben exhaled hard. It wasn't the product that sold Mr. Donovan. It was the belief behind it. The bridge from doubt to action. That small win was everything. It didn't make him rich. It didn't make headlines. But it reminded him of something crucial. Faith isn't just a feeling. It's a decision. A choice to act, even when the outcome is unclear. Ben went home and created a new sign for his garage wall. I believe in the work. I believe in the mission. I believe in myself. He didn't wait for proof to feel confident. He chose confidence, and then created the proof. Failure is feedback, not finally. A week later, 3 of his tools were returned. The customer said the latch was too stiff. For a few moments, the old fear returned. See? You're not ready. This is falling apart. But this time, Ben did something different. He listened. He tested the tools himself. And you know what? The customer was right. So Ben fixed it. He reworked the spring tension. The tool improved. Failure didn't break him. It built him. Because when you approach failure with faith, it becomes feedback. It becomes a map showing you how to get better. Fueling faith daily. Ben knew now that faith wasn't something you had. It was something you built. And like muscles, it grew through you. So each morning, he added a new practice to his routine. He visualized success, customers using his tool, smiling, recommending it. He repeated his mantra. I believe in the work. I believe in the mission. I believe in myself. He wrote down one reason to keep going, even on hard days. These small actions kept his fire alive. They were his armor against fear. They were his quiet promise to himself. Surrounding yourself with believers. One evening, Ben invited a few close friends over to see the product in action. He didn't expect anything. But after the demo, something beautiful happened. His friend Karen offered to help build a website. James, a graphic designer, offered to design the logo. His neighbor said, I know 2 contractors who'd love this. Ben was stunned. People wanted to help, not because he begged, but because they believed in what he believed in. Faith is contagious. The stronger yours is, the more others will catch it. The moment that changed everything. One night, after dinner, Lily asked a question. Daddy, are you famous now? Ben laughed. No, not even close. She smiled. But you're working on your dream, right? Ben nodded. Yes, I am. Then she hugged him tight and whispered, I'm proud of you. Ben's throat tightened. In that moment, he realized something powerful. You don't need the world to believe in you. You just need enough faith to take the next step. That's how you change your world. Closing reflection. Ben's journey wasn't finished. There were still hills to climb, mistakes to make, lessons to learn. But now, he was grounded in something unshakable. He knew doubt would visit again, but he knew how to answer it, with faith, not fear. He had seen what belief could do: spark action, inspire others, turn ideas into real tools that help people. And every morning, as he flipped the light on in his garage, he whispered the same words. I believe in the work. I believe in the mission. I believe in myself. Because that kind of belief, it builds more than a business. It builds a life that matters. End of part 4. Let me know when you're ready for part 5. Opportunity hides in the struggle. Day 1. The journey to a life that matters. Part 5. Opportunity hides in the struggle. Motivational story inspired by Napoleon Hill. 1,000 words. Simple English for an American audience. The summer heat pressed heavy over the town, but Ben Parker was too focused to notice. Orders were increasing. His product had a name now: True Grip Pro. His website was live. Customers were talking. Emails were coming in. It felt like momentum. It felt like success. But just when things seemed steady, life threw a punch. A hard one. The storm no one sees coming. On a Tuesday morning, Ben received a call from the local supplier he used for his materials. We're shutting down for 2 months, the voice said. Backorder delays. Nothing we can do. Ben froze. He had orders waiting. Customers expecting deliveries. And now, no materials. Panic surged through him. Why now? Why me? Just when I was getting somewhere. He stared at the wall. It felt like the dream was slipping through his fingers. But then another thought came. What if this isn't the end? What if this is the opening I need? Hard times hide open doors. That evening, after dinner with Lily, Ben sat in silence. No distractions. Just thinking. He pulled out a notebook and wrote one question. Where's the opportunity inside this problem? At first, nothing came. But then, a memory. Weeks ago, a friend mentioned a local group of veterans who started a metal workshop on the edge of town. He hadn't paid much attention then. Now, it seemed like a lifeline. Ben called. He asked if they had the tools and materials to help with small production batches. They did. More than that, they were happy to help. The unexpected advantage working with the veteran team changed everything. The quality improved. The process got faster, even better. Customers were inspired to hear that every tool was now made by American veterans. Ben added that story to the website. Orders doubled. What began as a problem became a story people wanted to support. That's the thing about struggle. It often hides your next step forward. If you only look at the pain, you miss the path. But if you ask, what can I learn from this? You find gold in the mud. Building under pressure. Ben started waking up earlier, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He felt a new kind of energy. Every obstacle he faced was now a challenge to solve. He wasn't afraid of struggle anymore. He welcomed it. Because with every challenge came creativity. With every setback came strategy. And with every tough moment came proof that he was stronger than he thought. Struggle had become his training ground. Pain had become his teacher. Discipline had become his edge. The day the warehouse caught fire 3 weeks later, Ben got a text from one of the veterans. Call me. There's been a fire. The warehouse had caught fire from an electrical issue. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But tools were damaged. Work would be paused for at least a week. Ben sighed deeply. Not again. But this time, he didn't panic. He sat down, looked at the facts, and made a list of temporary solutions. He found a backup location. He offered a discount to customers for the delay, with honesty and gratitude. Surprisingly, many replied with encouragement instead of complaints. Some even donated to the veterans' workshop. Turning struggles into strength. By the end of the week, Ben realized something strange. The more openly he shared his struggles, the more people supported him. Customers weren't just buying a tool. They were buying into the mission. His struggles weren't driving people away. They were drawing people closer. Why? Because people relate to imperfection. They admire effort. They connect with resilience. Struggle wasn't ruining the business. Struggle was humanizing it. And in a world full of perfect ads and fake success stories, Ben's honesty was refreshing. The wisdom in the womb. Late one night, Ben sat on his porch, thinking. Lily was asleep. The town was quiet. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you?" Not for the money, not for the success, but for the struggles. Because every hard moment had taught him something he couldn't learn from comfort: how to adapt under pressure, how to trust others, how to lead with empathy, how to grow when it's easier to quit. In every wound, there was wisdom. In every fall, a lesson. In every failure, the seed of something greater. A message from an old friend. The next day, Ben received a letter in the mail. It was from Mrs. Rollins, his high school teacher. She had read about his story in a local business magazine. The letter read, "I remember the boy who used to sit in the back, full of ideas but afraid to speak. I always believed in you. Now the world does too. Keep going, Ben. Your story gives people hope." Ben wiped a tear. That letter meant more than any sale, because it reminded him that the real reward of struggle isn't the profit. It's the person you become. Closing reflection: struggles are like weights in the gym. They hurt. They're heavy. They slow you down. But they build muscle. They shape character. They reveal what you're made of. Ben learned that the road to purpose isn't smooth. It's full of sharp turns and broken pavement. But those rough patches, they're where your strength is born. And now, every time he faced a challenge, he didn't ask, "Why me?" He asked, "What is this here to teach me? What opportunity is hiding in this struggle?" That mindset, it changed everything. End of part 5. Let me know when you're ready for part 6, final part. A life that speaks after you're gone. Day 1, the journey to a life that matters. Part 6, a life that speaks after you're gone. Motivational story inspired by Napoleon Hill. 1,000 words. Simple English for an American audience. Ben Parker stood at the edge of the small stage in his old high school auditorium. The same wooden floors. The same faded red curtains. But this time, he wasn't a student. He was the keynote speaker at the local youth business conference. Lily sat in the front row. He took a deep breath, stepped up to the mic, and looked out at the young faces. Then he began. "The ripple we leave. I used to sit where you're sitting," Ben said with a smile. "I was the kid with big dreams but no clue where to start. I thought success belonged to someone else, someone richer, smarter, more connected." A few students nodded. "But one day," he continued, "I realized that the only thing standing between me and the life I wanted was the decision to begin." He paused. "Not next week. Not next year. Not when I felt ready. But right then. That day." Planting the right seeds, Ben told them about the first product he built, the failures, the fear, the fire. But more importantly, he told them what those hard times gave him: confidence, creativity, courage. "Most people think success is about luck," he said. "But real success? It's about the seeds you plant daily. Your thoughts. Your habits. Your actions." He looked at the audience, eyes locked. "Plant discipline, harvest freedom. Plant doubt, harvest regret. Plant purpose, harvest a life that matters." Living beyond the paycheck. After the talk, a teenager came up to him. "Mr. Parker, can I ask something?" "Sure," Ben said. "Do you ever wish you had a normal job instead of all the stress?" Ben smiled. "I used to. But then I realized something. A job gives you a paycheck. A purpose gives you a legacy." He leaned in. "A job ends at 5 p.m. A purpose wakes you up at 5 a.m. It's what makes you push harder, dream bigger, and keep going even when the world says no." The power of one life. Years later, Ben's business became a national brand. But he stayed local. He hired people from the community. He donated to schools. He mentored young dreamers. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to leave a mark that money alone couldn't make. "Success," he once said in an interview, "isn't about what you have, it's about what you build that outlives you." Ben understood something most people missed. The way you live your life becomes your message. The letter that changed him. One morning, Ben found a letter in his office mailbox. It was handwritten. "Dear Mr. Parker," it read, "my name is Jordan. I was in the audience at your high school speech 5 years ago. That night, something shifted in me. I went home and started my own business at 16. Today, I run a nonprofit helping teens turn ideas into income. You lit that fire. Thank you for living the life you talked about. Ben read the letter twice. Then he sat quietly for a long time, because it finally hit him. His story wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone his story touched. We all leave a legacy at the end of his life. No one will care about the model of car Ben drove. Or how many likes he got online. But they will remember the small business he built from nothing, the kids he inspired to take action, the families supported by the jobs he created, the courage he passed on through every hard chapter. That is legacy. And you don't need to be rich or famous to build one. You just need to start. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. And do it with heart. Your life is a message every day. You're writing a story with your choices. The way you treat people. The risks you take. The courage you show. The passion you pursue. It all speaks. Even in silence, your life is talking. So the question is, what story are you telling the world? Because someone is watching. A younger sibling. A neighbor. A stranger who hears your story and thinks, maybe I can try too. Your life has the power to become a reason someone else begins. From day one to day legacy. Ben Parker didn't wait until everything was perfect. He didn't wait until he was ready. He just chose to begin. And in doing so, he wrote a story that lived far beyond his name. You can too. Because greatness doesn't start with a plan. It starts with a decision. A day one. Not one day, but today. Bell call to action. If Ben's story moved you, even just a little, don't let it fade. Sparkles like this video to support more content like this. Speechaloon, comment below. What is your day one going to be? Repeat button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Push pin, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that can change your mindset and your life. Let's inspire the world, one decision at a time.